So I do want to talk about what's the next step with the reverse engineering project, and assuming that you have modeled all of the parts for your specific object and you've made an assembly, the next step is to put the PowerPoint together. First thing we want to do is we want to get good images of the objects that you made in Inventor, including the assembly. But rather than making like a screenshot, which is very low quality, there actually is a render function within the software, and that's what we want to use today. So assuming that this is the part that I want to use, the first thing I want to do is I want to set it up so that it's taking up as much of the screen as possible for my rendering. What I like to do is to go to the zoom function and make sure that it's switched to zoom window, and that way when I click on it, it gives me kind of a window that I can drag out. I want to make sure that this is encompassing as much of the screen as possible for my rendering. Another nice feature is to go to the View tab and turn shadows on, because it's going to make it look more realistic to have shadows on the object. And then what we're going to do is go to the Environments tab. If I click on the second option, which is Inventor Studio, the first button that it lets me click on from there is Render Image. I want to make sure that my size is set to as large as possible. I can always shrink images down in PowerPoint and I won't lose quality, but if I blow it up, it has the tendency to pixelate. So the largest image possible is what we're going to go with, and then I'm going to click Render, and it makes a rendering of my object. Okay. Shadow is kind of nice. If you don't like the shadow, that's a function you can leave off if you want, but it gives me a good quality image of my object. And then I can click on the Save Rendered Image button, and I would save it in the same folder that you've been saving this actual project. You may even want to make a subfolder specifically for the images within that and save the file format or the type as a JPEG. So this is the same process that you would repeat for each of the parts and for your full assembly. You can do a rendering of your full assembly. We don't need an image of your exploded view because the exploded view is going to be your actual parts glued onto the board. Next thing you're going to need to do then is to open up PowerPoint, and within PowerPoint we want to do a couple things. One, we want to make a template or a slide that serves as the template for each of your parts, and on that template we want to include things like the number to identify the part, the name of that part, so whatever you've decided to name your part, and then some information including the material, its function, and then any other parts that it connects to or interacts with. And this information can be found on your disassembly chart, which we did in activity 6.4, so you may want to refer to that. And then we'll put our image in as well on our PowerPoint. And we want these to look very uniform, so each part's going to look exactly the same. That's why I'm suggesting you do a template. You can change the color of the background if you want. Obviously you can change the color in Inventor of the background for the rendering, so if you find colors that complement or contrast with your part, you can do that as well. The other thing you need to do is to create a parts list basically, and I use just the table function within Inventor to do that. Its first column is going to be for the part number, second column is going to be the part name, and third would be quantity. So if you have some screws, sometimes it's going to be more than one of those screws. You may also in PowerPoint want to create the balloons that we'll use for our exploded view, and we can do that fairly simply by creating large numbers that we can then cut out and then add to our display board. So all this is going to be due on April 17th. I would encourage you to have all of the assembling and modeling of your parts completed by this Friday, and then on the 17th, a week later, we'll have the board completed. And it will take a good week to put the board together, to make sure the PowerPoint's done right, to cut things out, to measure before we glue things down. And so to really have a good finished product, a good display board when you're done, you do have to give yourself a week to do that. And again, this will all be due on April 17th.